All right, we are live on Facebook. I am so grateful to have with me today Deborah Bringleson. She has this touch of gold where whatever she touches, it's like a fairy tale, the stories. Whenever you hear me say, and this one Dream 100, can you believe what they did? So much of the time, it's Deborah Bringleson that has put the hard work in to see those results. And that's what we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for being here, Deborah.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Wonderful. Well, just to give everyone else a little bit of a background. So some of the stories that maybe you've heard are Zaya, the high-end real estate company out of Dubai that went from 0 to 602 million in 12 months. Sometimes it's too hard for people to even comprehend. So we just go with the percentage. That's how big that is. Another one of her clients was Martin Natel, which was Vote Bash. He closed a $64 million contract in 5 weeks of starting his Dream 100. We had Discovery Channel Latin America double their sales in 8 months. Deborah was leading the pack. I mean, it's just crazy. Just those in themselves, right? And I know you won the the deal that never should have happened. I forgot what it's called, the award, but thank you, Steal of the Year award between Richard Branson and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And we're going to cover a bit of that as well. My goodness, we have a lot to get through in this half hour.
Yeah, and you said hard work. It is hard work, but one of the things that's really cool is when you use the right tools, it makes it so much easier. So I want to talk about that today too, about, what are some of the tools that if you're going to run your Dream 100 campaign, what are my favorite tools that make it easier?
Oh, I'm sure everybody will want to hear that. Okay, so can you put into some kind of an understanding of what do you think is the difference that makes your successes with Dream 100 so unparalleled in comparison to so many that just maybe try and then give up?
Well, I think one of the things is I know to what the thoughts are in their head, who our ideal buyers are. And, everyone will say, well, I know who my ideal buyers are. I have my avatar, blah, blah, blah. No, you don't. I promise you, you do not know your ideal buyers at the level that I know the ideal buyers of my clients. You don't, I promise you. And so I really know them, so I know how to speak to them. And one really great example of that is the housing developer who was selling houses by talking about granite and lighting and all of the traditional housing things. She didn't sell any houses for the 12-month period prior to working together.
Yeah, that's scary.
It's really scary.
A year without a deal. Yeah, right. That's terrifying.
And so when we really understood her ideal buyers, what we understood is they didn't care about granite and lighting and buying a house. They had a house. They were at a higher risk for things like diabetes and heart disease. Their kids were at a greater risk for teen drug use and other behaviors, which if you don't know your ideal buyer at that level, you don't know your ideal buyer. So once we start talking to them, look, we wanted to sell houses. Let me tell you about how to prevent dying from a heart attack. What? I mean, that was what the videos on her website talked about: diabetes, how to prevent diabetes. What are some of the things that you can do to care for yourself so you don't die of a heart attack in your 50s, like one of our buyers' fathers had done? When we got to that level of knowing them and talked about what they cared about, they started buying houses. And, within 12 months, she had sold $602 million worth of houses.
Wow.
Compared to 0 the year before. So that's one of the things. The other thing is, where did I get that information? And my favorite tool in my toolbox, and I've got a big toolbox, my favorite tool is something that well, it's called the core story. And I would never do a Dream 100 campaign, ever, without a core story. I've had people say to me, no, I don't want to invest in that. It doesn't make any sense to me, or I can do it myself. And I've written a core story. My very first core story I wrote for Richard Branson. It was massive work, not nearly the quality that you get out of Empire Research Group. And so I just wouldn't do it without a core story.
And I understand why you're saying that, because as people start to deploy their Dream 100s, usually it's somebody that's, far from their reach, right? They're not spending time with them day in, day out. Like if you're going after a billionaire, or if your ideal buyer is somebody that's like a hospital CEO, and how do you even know what's on their mind, what's going on in their day-to-day life? So it's so interesting to be able to collect data and information that actually proves this is what those people are thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crucial. So, and how was the reaction to the team, the real estate team, when you said, okay, we're going to talk, instead of talking about, the features and benefits of the product, we're now going to talk about heart disease and diabetes?
Well, that team hated me. They thought I was crass. They were in an arena where everything was very beautiful. Their original website had curtains that flowed in the breeze, but it didn't make any money. And when I wanted to put up these videos that, were basically me standing and giving, educational information about how you get these diseases, how to prevent them and everything, Deborah's crass. But, my feeling is, as a business consultant, I'm there to help you make money, not to be an artistic designer.
My father was so big about this too. Man, I think he actually repulsed having things look nice. He was far more intense than you. He was like, I will not make my slides look good. I will not make my website look good. He was so funny, but it converted. It was like, I was talking about this with Joey the other day of like, you can have ugly things as well. And it's actually a strategy, not to say what you were doing was ugly, but I'm talking about my father and his extreme of like, if it speaks to the person, that is the most important thing, regardless of what it looks like, how it's packaged. Yeah.
Yeah. And as I said, I have never worked with a client who really knew and understood their regular buyer, let alone their dream buyer. And when you get to the level of understanding them, when you know that they're worried that they're going to die in their 50s from a heart attack, and you want to sell them houses, when you know them at that level, trust me, you really know them. And that's why it just, people just started buying and buying and buying. The other thing that you ask, what makes a difference of the success? Too many people who try to do their marketing on their own without somebody who really understands strategic messaging. They, oh, well, gosh, we haven't sent anything to our list lately, so we've got this piece of junk that we've resurrected and we'll send it out, just so they know that we still exist. And that's not how a Dream 100 campaign is run. It might work in a regular campaign. I don't think it does, and I would never recommend it. But it does not work in a Dream 100 campaign. You've seen my Dream 100 calendars. They're mapped out every month for a year, every week in every month for a year, what's going out. And we go through an entire strategy using the core story of what should be sent. What's the first messaging that is going to inspire them to pay attention? What is it we're going to send them? Is it a 2-minute video or something else? It's all mapped out completely, and then it's run like clockwork. And I know that doesn't sound like fun, but when the money starts rolling in, it gets kind of fun.
I love that. You share that it's hard for people to really know their buyer. Do you have an example that would explain where someone wasn't very clear and then you were able to assist them to get clarity, so we could wrap our brains around that a little more?
Well, I can give you two that I think are really good. One was a multi-billion-dollar international company, and they were wanting to sell ad space to like car companies and diamond companies and things like that. And so they were, well, they're in the luxury world, and we want to sell them things about packages about luxury. Well, that's fine, except the people who were really their ideal buyers were the intermediaries, the companies that were putting the ads together. And so when we understood that, which they hadn't really thought, they thought these were just like drones in the middle. And they didn't realize what tremendous influencers they were over the brands. And so when we understood them, you know, we had Empire do a core story and we targeted them, and we understood that they were under tremendous stress from people who were trying to sell the ads to the people who were trying to buy the ads, their own internal bosses. They were under all this stress. So we had a campaign that included stress relief for them to let them know we cared about them. You know, we gave them information about, you know, things they could do to reduce their stress, about the importance of taking a vacation and the value of it to their bottom line. We sent them little packets of, you know, creams and stuff to, here, you know, smell this, take care of yourself kind of thing. They increased their revenue 110% in 10 months. And
Wow.
they were in an industry that was really struggling, you know, in the multimedia industry in the past couple of years have really been struggling as people have cut the cord and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Another client,
I love that, by the way. I love the lotion too.
yeah, feel good. You know, here's a little bottle of wine or whatever. Feel good about yourself. You deserve it. You put your feet up, kind of thing. Another client who also had a core story, so we really knew their buyer, was serving kids, you know, training them on how to, you know, compete in sports and athletics and things like that. And so he was targeting the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, but do they have a wallet? Services? And he's like, oh my God, I've been targeting the wrong ideal buyers. I need to be targeting their parents. And so we designed his campaign around, you know, what do parents care about? Well, sports helps to prevent teen pregnancy, for example. That's something that a parent would really care about.
Yeah.
When kids are disciplined in sports and they've got a purpose, their self-esteem grows, their grades get better, something a parent would care about. So knowing your ideal buyer and really understanding what they care about made a huge difference for that company.
Wow. That's great. That's wonderful. Yeah, because I think that's a big misunderstanding, right? Is people say, okay, I'm going to do my Dream 100. And then that's the hardest first step, is that they so much of the time, and it's hard for them to even admit that they don't know who it is, right? That's a hard thing to say.
Well, and a lot of them really think they do. They really think, you know, I've got an avatar, because everybody says, well, who's your buyer avatar? And if you're just worried about an avatar, then you're skimming the surface. I mean, with the exercise I take my clients through, we're thinking about when they're laying in bed at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling and they can't sleep and they're all stressed out, what are the words that are going through their mind at the time? What are they saying to themselves? And when we can talk to them where they really are, I always say, meet your buyer where they are, not where you are.
Mm. That's powerful. That's really powerful. So what would be, because you do a lot around the shifting of even believing what's possible. Can we talk a little bit about that? Is that okay? Because I've asked you, and I know from behind the scenes that, you know, for a pre-revenue startup, like I interviewed, right, Martin for Entrepreneur, and he said, you know, I just didn't even believe that I could close a $64 million contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so he was an interesting guy. He really started to learn that he could create his own reality and that the sky was the limit. And I had written this, you know, short little document, I don't know, like 10 pages or so, about how to manifest your own reality and how you have to think differently and how you have to become differently. And he told me, so he was in a 5-week program and he was pre-revenue startup, $0. By the end of the 5 weeks, he had closed this deal for $67 million using this. And he told me, he said, my wife and I get up every morning and we read that PDF document that you gave me.
Wow.
And we talk about how we're going to use it in our day.
Wow.
And I think that's one of the things that's really important to the success of the Dream 100 campaign is there are no limits at all to the creativity that you can use. I mean, you know, like for example, one of the things that I did with Richard Branson, I had a Dream 100 campaign, but he was my only target.
Yeah.
So I had a Dream.
How many on your Dream 100 list? One.
And it was Branson, and you know, we did all of the things that we traditionally do. We use a strategic messaging and all of that. But one of the things that we knew about him was that he wanted his company to be cool and edgy and fun.
Okay.
And so part of my campaign was when he came to the Bay Area, which is where I was at the time, to talk about the deal, that by the way, he was a hard no before we ever started. Anyone who knows your buying pyramid knows he was in the bottom 30%. No, we're not doing that. I didn't know it at the time, but I found out later after it was over. And so we had this campaign to show him, hey, look, we can be just as cool and edgy and fun as you are. And I am far more so now than I was then. And I wasn't at all then. But we pretended, right? And so he came, and one of the things that we did is we wanted to show that the Bay Area sees red. So everywhere he went, and my team and I pretended like we didn't even see this, like they were invisible. But we would have these performance artists show up because performance art was really important to him. He wanted us to help him find ways to train his people. So we said, okay, we'll show him we can do performance art. So, you know, when he got off the airplane and he's going down the people mover, coming at him is this woman in this red Victorian dress with this massive red Victorian hat. And she's, you know, just going down the people mover. Like that's what we do in the Bay Area every single day. And, you know, their eyes are going up and we can't see them. And it's like, you know, this is how it is. And when we got to the hotel, we had hired this fabulous, beautiful drag queen to sit outside in her red cocktail dress, kind of draped across the bench, painting her nails with red nail polish. Again, we didn't see them, but you know, the Virgin team sure did. So your creativity is the only thing that limits you. And if you can come up with all kinds of crazy ideas, some of those are the most successful.
Oh, I have to write that down.
And by the way, I'll tell you this particular dream campaign, which happened to be a lot of fun. I had no staff other than one assistant, and I had 46 volunteers who were employed in other arenas.
Oh,
so
terrible.
I had no budget at all. When I was competing against, you know, states like Massachusetts and Boston, who had, you know, Mitt Romney was on their team, and the Red Sox, you know, gave them private seats, and they were sending him live lobsters. I had a budget of $0 for my campaign. He was a hard no when we started. We won the deal. $300 million a year in annual revenues.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. How long did that take? What was the time period it took to do that?
It was about 9 months.
So you had something that happened every single week for 9 months?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And they really did not want to. California didn't have a governor, you know, he had been recalled, and Arnold Schwarzenegger hadn't been elected yet. And all these things had been going on. And he was the California business community was running ads in the New York papers about how bad the California business economy was. So he truly was a hard no.
So what really was it? What do you think was that turning point? Was there a turning point? Like what opened the door that changed the mind?
Well, so he had been saying, he had been ignoring me and ignoring me and ignoring me, and I kept my campaign going. I just kept it going. And, and you know, when you're running a campaign like this, you have got to be tenacious. You have got to be. And so finally I called, you know, I had been calling all the time, and, you know, I don't think I ever asked what the homework was for math, but I felt like a 16-year-old girl trying to get the cute boy's attention. I really did. Making up reasons to call. And finally I called and I said, I will be there with my team that I didn't have on November 17th. What do you want to know from me?
Oh.
And we'll call you back. And they called me back and they said, we expect a 2-hour presentation. I was like, what? And this is what we want to know. Bring your best offer, blah, 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 bring your team. And I cobbled together, you know, one guy that I wanted on the team from transportation was going to be in Washington. He said he would take a train over to New York and sit in the room with me. I had somebody from Oracle on the phone in the room with me. I had one of the transit safety guys said, I'll take my wife on a vacation and I'll show up in the room with you and be your IT guy, because I didn't have anyone to like make sure nothing fell apart electronically. So I had a team of about 9 people in the room. And I think it was just that I was relentless. And finally, they're like, okay, she's going to be here. What are we going to do with her? And we had our core story, which was massive, appallingly massive, but we had our core story. We went through it. Took us 3 hours and then another hour of Q&A.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that was, okay, we're gonna take them seriously. The other thing was, when you talk about creativity, so everybody else, we were in competition with 6 other states, and they had hundreds of millions of dollars they were throwing at him. I had nothing, and California law wouldn't have even allowed that, you know, even if I'd had access to it, but I had nothing. All I had was me,
wow.
and my volunteer team. And so I said, we can't give him money, but we can make him money. So we started putting together side deals.
Yes.
We put together a deal with LeapPad, which was really big at the time. Okay, look, you have this deal, Virgin America have this deal with LeapPad. They'll put a little LeapPad thing in the back of every seat. So if you have a kid, they've got entertainment for the flight. And so we had a big party with 50 of the top Fortune 100 and 500 CEOs in the Bay Area, and we just started putting together deals.
Wow. Okay, that's a big light bulb for everybody listening to this, right? Can you make your Dream 100 money? Can you bring them deals? That is just a game changer. I love that. And the idea of like competing against price or budgets, and that just didn't even matter because of the pig-headed discipline and determination. I mean, you hadn't read the book yet, but that is PhD at its finest right there. Oh my gosh. And this time has gone by so quickly. We only have 6 more minutes. Oh my God. I've just fallen into this story that you paint. It's so exciting because so many of us, you know, we're running after that big deal, but the commitment isn't there, or the determination isn't there. And for you, it's just wherever there's a will, there's a way, right? It's like, I'm going to do it no matter what it takes.
Yeah.
Wow. It's so good. Okay. Wow, I just want to talk about that all day long, but well, can you share a little bit? We had talked about some of the things that you had given, like there was a little black book, that story. Can you tell me about that as well?
Sure. So this was for the real estate client in Dubai, and we knew there was an area of Dubai that had a lot of our ideal buyers. And so we created, you know, a cheeky take on the little black book that men used to carry or carry, I don't know, but you know, it was her recommendations on where to go to get the best. So it was, we took the material from the core story about stress, for example, or about, you know, needing more sleep, where to find the best acupuncturist in the area. And so it would have like one page and it would tell a little factual information about stress or sleep. And then it would have, okay, here's my recommendation. Here's who I call. Here's who's in my little black book. And so we had this little black book, and it was delivered to everyone in this particular area that we knew had a lot of our ideal buyers.
Wow. It's just the idea of a strategist versus a tactician. Can you just cover that briefly for me? What is the difference between a strategist versus a tactician? Because everything you're telling me, it's just, for me, it's just light bulbs of this is strategy, this is strategy, this is strategy, right?
Right. So, you know, a strategist knows what they want to accomplish, and their eye is always on what they want to accomplish. You know, I want to accomplish in that particular case, connecting with the people who are our ideal buyers about what they really care about. And so everything is focused on that. How do I do that? Whether it's the little black book, or there was an area where they had to get on boats to go to an island. We had 8-foot billboard type things that just had core story panels in them. And it was just information about, you know, diabetes, heart disease, how to really connect with your teenager, that kind of thing. Again, I was called crass for that. But they're standing there, they're waiting for a boat, they have nothing else to do, and there are these massive billboards, you know, tastefully done with core story panels in them. That's all. Thinking about that, how to connect with them, what to say to them is the strategy. The tactic is, okay, let's turn that into a billboard. So as they're standing there for 15 minutes, we're giving them something to read that's going to interest them and gently lead us to us. There was no hard sale in that. The thing with Richard Branson, you know, in the campaign, The Bay Area Sees Red, that may have seemed frivolous to some extent, but what it did is it engaged him. What I wanted to do was engage him. He was not interested in me or anything I had to say. So I wasn't going to do it, but something like that, you know, having the woman in Victorian dress. Another place we had 5 children dressed in red shorts, red t-shirts, bouncing red balls in unison. I strategically knew that he cared about performance art and wanted his people trained in performance art wherever his headquarters was.
Yeah.
Showing him that we can do that by using those tactics. Do you get the difference?
Yeah, it's like if somebody's just blindsidedly just going after a sale versus showing that you're the expert, showing that you're number one, showing that you have more information than anybody else because you weren't throwing money, you were showing that, right, you were giving him the experience already that that you were the best out there. Right. Yeah.
And anything can be a tactic. You know, I could have sent him my PDF and he would have not opened it. That would have been a tactic that was that failed because it wasn't strategically thought out about what's going to inspire him to take the next step with me. And it's always about taking the next step.
So we have 1 more minute. Oh my gosh. I think this is the fastest interview I've done yet, where it just went by so fast. I was so engaged in what you were telling me about Dream 100. I'm sad that it's ending, but what would be that last piece of advice for those that are just struggling with their Dream 100? What would you tell them to give them that, just like, this is what you can do when you're struggling?
You know, the number one thing I would do is I would talk to somebody who's done it before. You know, whether it's to schedule an appointment with a consultant who's done, but make sure they've done it before successfully, because it's kind of like, you know, you may be able to change the oil in your car. I don't know if anybody still does that, but you may be able to do that, but you're not going to be able to replace the alternator, for example, on your own. And this is something that there's a level of expertise that the average CEO just isn't going to have. So my number one recommendation is talk to somebody who's done it.
Well, that's a perfect recommendation. I love that. Thank you so much, Deborah. Everyone, this is Deborah Bringleson.
Hey, it's Deborah Bringleson.
And I know from working with CEOs all over the world, and also from what I see in the data, you as a CEO are under more pressure and stress than ever. Something else that I know is that you deserve to thrive in the new economy, and I want to help you. So I've set aside some time to do some free strategy sessions with CEOs just like you. When you're ready, go to deborahbringelson.com/take action and set up a time for you and I to get together, and we'll develop a strategy, and we'll do it together, a strategy to help you solve your number one problem in your business. So when you're ready, deborahbringelson.com. Remember to watch those E's, there are a lot of them. deborahbringelson.com/take action. See you soon.